All right, hello everyone. Eric Marks, FindingMiddleEarth.com, and welcome to week 2 of my weekly Instagram photo critique. If you want to get involved in this, all you have to do when you're posting a photo on Instagram, just use my hashtag FMEcritique, and every week I will look up the hashtag and I'll see all the photos associated with it, and then of course I will pick a few photos from the pool of photos that are tagged with the hashtag, and I will critique them here on my YouTube channel. So let's go ahead and get started. The first photo here was submitted by a longtime follower of the channel. Forgive me if I pronounced the name wrong. I believe it's Wahab Dilawar. So thank you so much, Wahab, for submitting the photo. So the first thing that I see when I look at this photo, all right, is I immediately notice and applaud the fact that he chose to isolate the bench from the background. I think that was a very smart decision here. This is one of those photos to where if he was standing further back with like a wide angle lens and tried to get the foreground, the bench, the tree, and the mountains and the ocean all in focus, I think it would be a very confusing composition because I wouldn't really know, what the main subject is. So Wahab, the fact that you decided to isolate the bench and kind of focus on that and let everything else kind of gradually fall out of focus into a nice bokeh, I think that was a very smart decision, so great job on that. I think that's the only way this kind of photo could have worked. I like the fact that there's no person sitting in the bench. That makes it like one of those stock images you could sell where, you have some kind of, inspirational text line up here that that you see, people put something in quotes in some kind of, in the top third of an inspirational landscape image from some kind of historical figure. So, I like that. I think it has that kind of stock image quality where people could use this in like a PowerPoint presentation for, for something, some kind of inspirational speaker could use this. So I like that feel of the image. It feels like that to me. This feels like something I would see with, with a snappy text in the sky or something. So let me tell you the way my eyes kind of work the way through this photo. So obviously the first thing they see is the bench here because it is in sharp focus, and that's nice. And then they kind of make their way over to the tree because it's kind of a hot spot and a nice bright green color. So they make their way here, and then my eye kind of quickly shot down to the rock, which I think is a good move that you added the rock here, that you left that in, because that kind of adds some subject matter here instead of just empty space. So as soon as they quickly kind of fluttered at the rock, it shot right back up into the sky. And the reason why I think my eyes did that is because there's a really nice contrast of bright white clouds and then some darker storm clouds. And then, of course, the kind of greenish blue ocean, and then the kind of distant blue mountains. So there's a lot of different shades of blue going on here, all right? So I like that. I think it's actually kind of pleasing to the eye based on this kind of, desaturated gray dull bench with the green. The blue kind of, the soft tones of blue and green in the background kind of make for a really nice contrast off of that gray bench because gray is just kind of a neutral color. So I like that. I like the way the green and the blue play off of each other. What I don't like is, let me undo these brush strokes here. When I get done with everything else in the image, when I get done looking at the bench and the tree and the sky, when I'm done with those, my eye eventually makes its way back to the foreground, okay? And the foreground has some problems. So if you zoom in, you can see there seems to be a lot of trash on the ground. Looks like there's like a bag here and a pile of used cigarettes right here. And then more cigarettes here and here. Let's zoom out a little bit. There's like some shredded paper right here. Some kind of blue rope or maybe some fishing line right there. And then some stuff back here. So basically there's a lot of trash and random distractions in the foreground. And let me tell you why that's kind of disappointing to the eye, right, when I'm looking at everything. Because right when I look at this, like I said, it has that kind of like inspirational photo quality to it. And so I'm kind of imagining, right, maybe I'm imagining being there on that beautiful bench looking at this beautiful scene. And when I'm imagining that, you know, it's great until I get back to this foreground and I'm like, man, that's where the bad human element comes into it, right? I start thinking, oh, right, there's humans that throw trash on the ground and litter our landscapes and ruin, you know, things. And then that just kind of ruins the beautiful, simple, clean quality of the photo for me. So that's the biggest problem with the image. Here's the good thing about that. The biggest problem with the image is actually a small thing. This can be fixed with clone stamping, although if you did clone stamp this, it would probably look unnatural because there's so much trash. So what I think you could have done was, if you stepped further back from the bench, I don't know, you know, I wasn't there, so maybe you couldn't step further back, but if you stepped further back and then you zoomed all the way in on like a telephoto lens and you kept zooming, then what you could have done was you probably could have isolated the bench even further. And because you're zoomed all the way in, if you would have used an aperture of maybe like f4, f2.8, then a lot of the grass and trash down here would have just been in soft focus and bokeh, and you wouldn't really even be able to tell that that's trash. So then you would have really had more of a soft focus effect all back here and with the tree, but you would have also kind of masked out the ground, and that would have been much less of a distraction. And you know, if this was just beautiful green grass, I wouldn't really mind it that much. But right now, if you're asking how to fix this image, I think that if you cropped, let me get rid of my brush strokes here again. I think that if you cropped the image up to about here, okay, this line here, so that way you can get rid of this cigarette pile here, and then maybe added a nice vignette or a radial filter in Lightroom. If you added a radial filter around the bench and then just kind of kept this at one nice exposure and darken everything else out here around the bench, you could kind of keep the eye off of the trash in the foreground. You can try clone stamping it; that might work. But that's really the only thing I see, you know, that's actually wrong with the image, is that compositionally, you have to think about stuff like that when you're on location. That's the biggest piece of advice I would give you, Wahab, is that when I'm on location, you know, before I would just shoot and I wouldn't really think about anything other than the subject. So you were probably so focused on like the bench and the beautiful ocean, you might not have even noticed that. And that's an easy mistake to make. I've done that a million times. But now when I'm on location, because I've caused myself so much work in the past of, you know, clone stamping and having to crop stuff, I would try to look at every detail, right? I try to set up my shot to where I can alleviate a lot of this basic cleanup stuff in Photoshop when I get back home. Because, you know, you can save yourself a lot of time if you're, you know, in a composition and you just shift left or shift right or shift your tripod up or down just to, you know, to get rid of some kind of big distraction in the scene. Excuse me. So, all in all, I think this is a beautifully set up shot. The composition was very smart that you chose to isolate the bench. The only other two little things that I would tell you is when you're processing, you can see that because the background is out of focus, this is maybe like a boat in the water. From here, when you're looking at it, it just kind of looks like a black blob or like a sensor dust spot. So, you know, this thing here, this is a little boat probably. Those little things, just be more detail oriented when you're post-processing and try to get rid of those things. Because if, you know, as photographers, when we look at other images, we obviously, you know, pay very close attention and we have a very detailed sweep through other people's images. And we want our viewers to have that same, you know, detailed overlook of our photos. We want people to really get in and look at the details that we took so much time to set up. And if they start looking at the details and there's stuff like this with the trash and some of the distractions, it might turn them off. So think about that, right? We want to put in all the time and effort that we can on the forefront so that after the final result is done and the viewers are seeing it, they're seeing the best of the best. You know, every single detail that we spent in Photoshop or that we spent on location making sure it was perfect, it's all worth it because we see the, you know, the viewers are just loving it. So keep in mind that all the details really do matter for the final result. So again, beautiful, you know, I love it. Beautiful scene, great photo, very nice and smart to choose the isolating the bench. Just watch out for the details is the biggest piece of advice I would give you. So thank you very much, Wahab, for participating in this. Let's move on to the next photo here. I'm probably running this video pretty long. The next one here is by a viewer named Beatrix. She's from New Zealand, I believe. So I'm assuming this shot was taken in New Zealand. And right off the bat, I think this photo has the potential to be a really nice photo. I think it has all the elements, the ingredients of everything to be a nice photo. Now, I believe Beatrix told me on Instagram that she does not post-process her photos. Now, I don't know if that's because she doesn't like post-processing or if she doesn't know how. I'm not sure. So I'll kind of critique hers a little differently with that in mind, just so I can help you along. But I'm still going to tell you a couple of post-processing things where processing could fix certain errors in the image. So right when I look at this image, I notice a couple things, okay? First thing I notice, you're probably shooting wide-angle lens, and you're probably pretty close and low to the ground. The reason why I say you're close to your foreground is because this rock formation here and this rock formation here look very, very dominant in the foreground. So you're probably close with a wide-angle lens. That's my guess. Not 100% sure. Just a guess. So I like the dominating, foreground. I like that. It's got nice eye flow because there is rock here, there's a rock here, and then there is this nice line, okay, that follows the sand and the water, and it goes all the way out to the sun, the sunset right there. Okay, so there is a very nice, strong leading line. Let me back up my brushstrokes and tell you what I think is, I'm not going to say a mistake, but I'm going to say what I think could have been better in the image, because there's really no right or wrong way to take photos. Again, these critiques are my opinion. So I think that there are two subjects in this image that are fighting for the show, okay? Fighting for the star of the show. I think that while the sunset over here is very beautiful and interesting, I think that this truck and these people are just as interesting, because this is what I would call big landscape, little people. I like that kind of effect. So how would I have done this differently to where these two subjects aren't fighting for attention? Before I get into that, let's go over some technical things here. So I like the way, again, that you set up the foreground rock here and a foreground element here. It kind of balances the thirds of the image. What you want to watch out for is right here. Okay, and I'll keep circling it. Right here, there's a huge hot spot. And what I mean by that is I think it's overexposed. It's kind of burnt out. So right when I look at the image, my eye goes right here to this big hot spot. It's hard to notice much anything else because it's so bright. Now, of course, I'm sure that's because it was reflecting off of the sunset, and that can be hard to control. But that's where post-processing can come in and kind of save you, because again, I think this image is very, very pretty. It's a beautiful scene. It's captured beautifully. I can see the fog in the distance, which is nice. And you could have even made the colors a little nicer with some post-processing. But again, I like the soft water. So that's the first technical issue, is I would say this big bright spot here. The second thing that I'm having a little trouble is, I wish there was a little bit more sky. I feel like the sky is a little cut off. Now, I know you're doing this whole, dominant foreground rock thing, but I feel like the clouds were like so good that you could have used a little more sky and maybe tilted the camera up a little bit. But you're going to laugh, because here's what I probably would have done with this photo. Like I said, let me turn my brush off and go to a clean brush here. So like I said, since the sunset, okay, right over here, is a main subject, and since the truck is a main subject, I would have honestly probably just taken my entire focus off of the sunset, and I would have made this image all about the people in this beautiful place, okay? You probably think I'm crazy, but this is just what I would have done. I would have probably cropped the image to something like this, okay? Something like that. Now let me undo that, and I'll actually crop it and show you what I might have done. So let's hit C. And this, this is not going to be super high resolution because I'm cropping a JPEG here. But let's do something like this, and I'll show you an issue with this. So let's say that we cropped the image like this, all right? And we really focused on this beautiful mountain coming in from the top right, and then the mountain here, which kind of leads you literally right down, a leading line right down to the truck. So that is nice, all right? But let me tell you, the issue is that we still have this strong leading line in the sand that's pointing out to the sunset, which isn't there, all right? So you probably could have done what I probably realistically would have done was do a panorama. I probably would have done a big sweep panorama and then cropped it pretty thin so that I could have gotten just a teeny tiny bit of the sunset, but mostly cropped off, just so it's a little nice touch of color in the far left. And then I would have really cropped in on these people, because I like the people playing in the water. I don't know why, it's a nice touch. They're the only people on the beach. I like that. So let's crop in a little more, all right, from here. Or maybe we could even clone stamp some sand over the water there, because that dominating line is pretty crazy. But I would have probably done something like this, all right? And I think that is really interesting and really cool, all right? Now, again, it's blurry because it's a JPEG and I just cropped in like 300%, but let me show you why I think this is technically really nice. I think that this huge dominating mountain coming in from the right is a perfect compositional element that leads you right down to these people, all right? Because my eye kind of goes here, right over here, and then it immediately wonders what in the world this big piece of contrast is, right, in the image. And I like that it's all pointing towards these people. So if you would have done that with a telephoto lens and kind of compressed the people, and then, post-processed the clouds, made them a little more drama in the clouds, some nice color, some contrast, I think that would have been a really cool shot. So think about that next time, that these small little details, kind of like I was telling Wahab, the details are what I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. It's always the details that will get you the views and the wows, all right? Look for things in the scene, in the landscape, that might not be there if someone else was there the next time. Does that make sense? For example, if a landscape photographer wanted to get the same shot you were getting of this scene, and they showed up 15 minutes later, well, odds are they probably would not get anywhere close to the same shot, because those people might have packed up and gone home. So in my opinion, by doing this composition and focusing on the people with this cool mountain and the fog in the background, you've just gotten an extremely unique shot that is very hard for another photographer to replicate. Just the way these people are standing, the way the truck is there, the way it's facing the mountain, everything about it is just cool and unique. So the original shot is not bad by any means, but keep in mind that when you're on location, decide when you're there what you want your subject to be. Do you want it to be the sun? Do you want it to be people? Do you want it to be a mountain? Right? Everything has to kind of flow and work. There is such a thing as compositional eye flow. And eye flow says, how does the human brain and the eye communicate to flow through the patterns and the shapes of the image? And so you never want two subjects fighting for attention. I just hit my microphone there. You never want two subjects fighting for attention, all right? You always want everything to complement each other. You want there to be this beautiful melody, of color and pattern and shape that just takes the eye right through the image, and it's a very quick and pleasing process. You don't want people to have to look so hard to try to figure out, what this image is about. You want them to look very quickly, immediately understand it, and then go back in for a second look to admire the details. That's what we want as artists and as photographers. So very well done, Beatrix. Beautiful scene. Okay, I like the technicalities. I like that you dominated those rocks in the foreground. You could have always clone stamped out the people, and that would have been a beautiful shot as well. But I think using the people there on location would have been really nice. So yeah, Wahab and Beatrix, thank you so much, both of you. Beautiful images. Thank you for letting me critique them. I hope you guys got something from this. I hope it helped some of you. And keep in mind, these are all just my opinions, because that's just what I would have done on location. But, I'm my own artist and I'm my own person. So, yeah, hope this helped. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. If you would like to stay up to date on all of my latest photography videos and adventures, click the big subscribe button below. And if you would like to find out more about me and how to become a great photographer, visit my website at findingmiddleearth.com.